My name is Becky Walsh, and I'm 32 years old. I work in digital risk assessment, not the flashy hacker movie version, but the quiet, meticulous kind where you learn to notice what other people overlook. Patterns, inconsistencies, the tiny details that don't matter until suddenly they matter more than anything. I never imagined those skills would be the reason my life split cleanly in two on a random Friday night. My fiancé and I had been together for 3 years, engaged for 8 months with our wedding scheduled for 6 weeks out. Everything was booked. Venue, photographer, catering. Almost $18,000 already spent, most of it non-refundable. We had a life mapped out so neatly it felt inevitable. That's what made what happened next so jarring, how quickly inevitability turned into illusion. That Friday night, he posted on Instagram a group photo from his bachelorette weekend, 6 people in matching shirts that read, "Bride Vibes," all laughing arms around each other. The caption said, "Last night of freedom before I'm tied down forever." I smiled when I saw it. I even commented, "Looks fun. Miss you already." He liked the comment almost immediately. Normal, easy, familiar. I wasn't suspicious, I was bored. It was close to 11. I was half watching a show, scrolling without purpose, when I tapped the location tag out of pure habit. Occupational reflex. I expected to see the name of a lake 4 hours north of the city, the Airbnb he'd shown me, the quiet weekend he'd described. Instead, the geotag placed him downtown. Not just downtown, but unmistakably here, in our city. At first, I laughed it off. Social media glitches happen. Photos get posted late. Locations lag. That's what people tell themselves when the truth is still optional. But something nagged at me, so I zoomed in on the background. Brick walls, neon signage, a bar layout I recognized instantly because a friend had celebrated a birthday there last year. My stomach dropped in that slow, sickening way where your body reacts before your mind is ready to agree. I texted him, "How's the lake house?" 3 dots appeared, almost instantly. So relaxing. Just chilling by the fire with the girls. Miss you. He lied without hesitation. That was the moment suspicion became certainty. I grabbed my keys before I could talk myself out of it. The drive took 12 minutes. I parked across the street and sat there with my hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to invent a harmless explanation. Maybe plans changed. Maybe someone else posted the photo. Maybe I was wrong. But deep down, I already knew I wasn't. When I looked through the window, I saw him, sitting in a booth, with his maid of honor, and with her, his ex-girlfriend. The woman he'd sworn was out of his life. The woman he told me not to worry about when I found old messages months earlier. His arm was around her shoulders, casual and familiar, like it belonged there. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. I stood there long enough to see him lean closer, to see her smile, to see the maid of honor stand up and leave them alone, like this was planned, like this was routine. And then I saw them kiss. Not quickly, not accidentally, the kind of kiss you give someone you've been choosing for a while. My hands shook as I took photos. The first few were blurry. The later ones weren't. I went home alone, carrying proof instead of answers, already knowing this was only the beginning of something far worse than a single lie. I didn't cry when I got home that night. I didn't scream or throw anything, or pace the apartment like people do in movies. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing my coat phone in my hand, staring at the photos I'd taken, as if they might rearrange themselves into something less devastating if I looked long enough. They didn't. The timestamps were there. The angles were unmistakable. His face, her face, the kiss, clear, undeniable. In my line of work, you learn early that evidence doesn't care about your feelings. It just exists. And once it exists, you either accept it or waste your energy fighting reality. I chose acceptance, even though it felt like swallowing broken glass. I didn't confront him that night. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew myself well enough to understand that if I spoke while my chest felt that tight, I'd say something I couldn't take back. I needed clarity, not catharsis, strategy, not emotion. So I slept on the couch, barely sleeping at all, replaying every moment from the past 8 months, the engagement, the wedding planning, the little arguments that suddenly felt suspicious in hindsight. Saturday morning, right on schedule, he texted me a photo. Him holding a coffee mug, smiling softly, standing on what looked like a wooden dock. Lake life, the caption said. I didn't even feel angry anymore, just tired. I saved the image and checked the metadata. The photo wasn't taken at a lake. It wasn't even taken that morning. It was tagged from his maid of honor's apartment downtown, less than 10 minutes from the bar I'd stood outside the night before. He wasn't just lying, he was constructing a narrative. A whole fake weekend, piece by piece, counting on me, never looking too closely. That realization hurt more than the kiss, because a kiss could be spun as a mistake, a lapse, a moment of weakness. But this took planning, coordination, a willingness to look me in the eye and lie with ease. I started wondering how long he'd been this good at it. How many work trips or girls' nights had really been this? How many times I'd trusted him because trusting felt easier than doubting. I spent the rest of Saturday doing what I do best when everything feels out of control. I organized. I called the wedding venue first, explained that the wedding might be canceled, and asked about their refund policy. The woman on the phone was sympathetic but firm. Inside 30 days, nothing was refundable. At 6 weeks out, I could recover about 60% if I canceled by Monday. I thanked her and made a note. Then the photographer, same story. Partial refund if I acted quickly. I called my parents next. That conversation broke something open in me that I'd been holding shut all morning. My mother cried quietly, apologizing over and over like this was somehow her fault. My father went silent for a long moment before asking very calmly what I needed. I told him I wasn't sure yet. He said they were here, no questions asked. After that, I called a friend of mine who happens to be a lawyer, not because I thought I needed legal action, but because I wanted to know how to protect myself. He told me the same thing I already suspected: we weren't married. So legally, it was straightforward. But emotionally, people get unpredictable. Document everything. Screenshot everything. Untangle finances now, not later. So that's what I did. I removed him as an authorized user on my credit card. Changed passwords to every shared account. Streaming services, cloud storage, even the grocery delivery app. I went through the apartment and quietly packed anything that was unquestionably mine into boxes, documents, electronics, sentimental items, and loaded them into my car. I didn't touch anything joint. I didn't want accusations later. Then there was the engagement ring. I took it out of the drawer and sat with it in my hand for a long time. $8,400. That's what the receipt said. I'd thought it symbolized a future. Turns out it was just a very expensive lesson. I put it back in its box and decided I'd return it Monday. Sunday evening, he came home. He walked in glowing, talking before he even set his bag down, telling me how perfect the weekend had been, how relaxing, how much he'd needed the time away. I watched him like I was watching a stranger perform a role he'd rehearsed too well. "Tell me about it," I said lightly. "Any highlights?" He smiled. "Just quality time with my girls. Oh, we rented a boat Saturday and my maid of honor fell in. It was hilarious." "Did you take pictures?" I asked. He shook his head. "My phone was in the cabin. Didn't want it to get wet." I nodded like that made sense, like I didn't already know the truth. He kissed my cheek and went to shower, still talking about how tired he was, how good it felt to be home. While the water ran, I connected my laptop to the TV and queued up the photos I'd taken Friday night. I set them as a slideshow. No captions, no commentary, just evidence. Then I sat on the couch and waited. When he came out of the bathroom in his robe towel around his shoulders, he stopped dead. The first image filled the screen, him in the booth, his arm around his ex-girlfriend. What is this?" he whispered. "Keep watching," I said. The next photo appeared, then the next, the kiss. The silence that followed was louder than any argument could have been. For a moment, he didn't move. He just stood there staring at the screen like it might accuse him out loud if he looked away. Then his face crumpled fast and dramatic, as if he'd been waiting for permission to fall apart. "It's not what it looks like," he said immediately. The words came out automatic, rehearsed like muscle memory. "She just showed up. I didn't plan this." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The photos kept looping silently behind him, undoing every sentence before it could even land. "She's my ex," he continued, stepping closer, lowering his voice. "We were just talking. It was a mistake. One stupid mistake." "One mistake doesn't require lying about where you were," I said quietly. My voice surprised even me. It didn't shake. One mistake doesn't require staged photos, or backup stories, or your maid of honor clearing out so you could be alone together. At that, he froze. I stood up and grabbed my phone from the coffee table. "The photo you sent me this morning." I went on, still calm. "The doc one. It was taken at your maid of honor's apartment. The metadata's clear. date, time, location. You weren't at a lake. You never were. He stared at me eyes wide. You. Check the metadata. I work in digital risk assessment, I said. I notice things. That's when the crying started. Real tears, loud and messy. He dropped to his knees in front of me, hands gripping mine like he could physically anchor himself to the life he was losing. Please, he said. Please, Becky. I messed up. I swear it didn't mean anything. It was just one kiss. Was it? I asked. Or has this been going on every time you told me you hadn't spoken to her in years? He opened his mouth, closed it, looked away. Silence answered for him. I gently pulled my hands free. I'm staying at a friend's place tonight, I said. I want you out of the apartment by Wednesday. Your name isn't on the lease. You can't just kick me out, he snapped suddenly, the desperation curdling into anger. We've been together 3 years. I have rights. You have the right to find somewhere else to live, I said. That's it. I grabbed the bags I'd already packed from my car and left without another word. My heart didn't break on the way out. It hardened. 4 days later, Wednesday came and went. He didn't leave. When I came back Thursday morning to check the apartment, he was sitting on the couch. His mother was beside him, hands folded neatly in her lap like this was a polite intervention instead of the aftermath of betrayal. We need to talk about this like adults, she said before I could even set my bag down. There's nothing to talk about, I replied. He cheated. The wedding is off. He needs to move out. She let out a long theatrical sigh. All couples go through rough patches. My husband and I, with respect, I cut in. I don't care about your marriage. Your son kissed another woman, his ex, while lying to me about where he was. There's no coming back from that. It was one kiss, she insisted, glancing at him. People make mistakes. I pulled out my phone. Funny you should say that. I opened the spreadsheet I'd built over 2 sleepless nights. Location data from our shared safety app, credit card statements, old phone records from when we were still on a family plan. A pattern so clear it made my chest ache to look at. Over the last 6 months, I said evenly, his location pinged at his maid of honor's apartment at least 12 times when he told me he was somewhere else. Her apartment building 4 times. And these I turned the screen toward her. Hotel charges, restaurants, dates he claimed were work events. Her face shifted shock, then denial, then something quieter, recognition. He needs to leave by tomorrow, I said, or I'm calling the police. That's when he lost control. You're ruining my life, he screamed. Do you know how embarrassing this is? The invitations are already sent. You should have thought about that before you started sleeping with your ex, I replied. I wasn't sleeping with her. The hotel charges say otherwise. He grabbed a lamp from the side table and threw it. It shattered against the wall less than a foot from where I stood. His mother didn't even flinch. That told me more than words ever could. That's destruction of property, I said calmly. I'm documenting everything. She finally stood. We're leaving, she said to him. We'll figure this out from my house. He tried to argue. He didn't win. By Friday, I received a letter from a lawyer. Not a real threat, just intimidation dressed up in legal language. I texted him once. Your belongings are boxed. Pick them up by Saturday at noon or they go on the curb. He replied with threats. I replied with facts. Saturday morning, his maid of honor arrived with a U-Haul. She didn't speak to me, just loaded boxes while glaring like I'd betrayed her instead. Before leaving, he turned to me one last time. You're going to regret this, he said. Everyone's going to know what kind of person you are. Everyone already does, I replied. I sent the photos with the wedding cancellation. The color drained from his face. The scream that followed echoed long after the truck drove away. I thought that sending the cancellation emails with the photos attached would be the end of it. A clean cut. Brutal maybe, but final. I underestimated how deeply people will fight to protect a lie once it's been exposed. The fallout was immediate. My phone lit up non-stop calls, texts, voicemails, stacking up faster than I could listen to them. His mother called first, her voice trembling with fury as she accused me of being vindictive, cruel, heartless. She said I'd destroyed her son's future over something small, as if betrayal were measured by inches instead of intent. His father followed, leaving a voicemail that veered between threats and moral lectures. His brother, the one I'd actually liked, texted to say I didn't have to humiliate him publicly. I replied to every single one of them with the same sentence. He humiliated me privately for 6 months. I just told the truth. That's when the narrative started to fracture. Later that night, my phone buzzed with a notification I didn't expect. A message request on Instagram from his ex-girlfriend. My first instinct was to ignore it. I didn't want another lie, another excuse. But something in me needed to know how far the deception went, so I opened it. She wrote that she was sorry. that she genuinely hadn't known we were still together. She said he told her we'd broken up 3 months earlier, that I'd already moved out, that we were finalizing things. She attached screenshots of their messages going back months. In them, he painted me as cold, distant, emotionally unavailable, a woman who never appreciated him, a relationship that had been dead for a long time. Reading those texts felt like watching someone rewrite my life in real time. She wasn't the villain I'd imagined. She was just another person he lied to, another prop in his carefully managed double life. I thanked her for telling me the truth. I told her I didn't blame her, and I meant it. The person I did blame was his maid of honor, because buried in those screenshots were messages showing her involvement, coaching him on what to say, suggesting excuses, helping coordinate cover stories. She wasn't just aware of the affair, she was managing it, scheduling it, protecting it. I forwarded those screenshots to her boyfriend. He called me an hour later. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just said, "Thank you for telling me." I had no idea. His voice sounded hollow, like mine probably had days earlier. I heard later through mutual friends that they broke up that same week. She tried to spin it as me manipulating the situation, but the evidence spoke louder than she ever could. Then came the call from the wedding venue. The coordinator sounded hesitant. "I wanted to give you a heads up," she said. "The groom's mother contacted us. She's trying to transfer the booking to a new date. She's claiming the wedding is still happening." I actually laughed, out loud. "That's not possible," I said. "The contract is in my name." "Yes," she replied, lowering her voice. "We told her that. She's been persistent." I thanked her for the warning and confirmed again that the wedding was canceled. An hour later, she called back. She told me my refund was being processed at the maximum amount possible. A professional courtesy, she said. Calm documentation mattered. 2 weeks later, I was served with papers. Not a lawsuit, just a demand letter. Emotional distress, plane tickets, the wedding dress, reputational damage. $22,000 total. I forwarded it to my lawyer friend. He laughed for a solid 30 seconds before telling me not to worry. We sent back a counter-demand for the money I'd spent on a wedding sabotaged by his infidelity, along with a reminder that I had documentation ready for any legal proceeding. I never heard from their lawyer again. The truth had done what it always does when it's properly recorded. It ended the argument. By the time the legal noise died down, I was running on fumes. The adrenaline that had carried me through the confrontation, the exposure, the counter-threats, it all drained away at once, leaving behind a heavy, bone-deep exhaustion. I hadn't just ended a relationship. I dismantled an entire future in a matter of weeks. Word traveled fast after that. Mutual friends started choosing sides, though most of them didn't even realize they were doing it. Some stopped calling altogether. Others reached out cautiously, as if afraid the situation might still explode if they touched it. A few admitted they'd noticed things over the past year, odd behavior, inconsistencies, but hadn't wanted to get involved. I didn't blame them. Silence is easier than truth until the truth forces its way into the room. He moved back in with his parents. According to what filtered back to me, he told anyone who would listen that I'd been controlling, paranoid, that my obsession with data had driven him away. He never mentioned the ex-girlfriend, never mentioned the lies. He rewrote the story until he was the victim of a woman who trusted evidence more than love. Some people believed him, most didn't. The photos helped with that. His maid of honor fared worse. She lost her boyfriend, lost a significant chunk of her social circle, and apparently started therapy not because she felt guilty, but because she couldn't understand why everyone was angry with her. Why helping a friend do what made him happy was suddenly being treated like a moral failure. There are people in this world who genuinely don't grasp the concept of accountability. She was one of them. The ex-girlfriend moved on quietly. Last I heard, she started seeing someone new. I was glad for her. She hadn't set out to hurt anyone. She'd just trusted the wrong person the same way I had. Financially, things settled into something manageable. I got back more of the wedding deposits than I expected, though I still lost about $5,000 all told. It stung, but it wasn't catastrophic. The engagement ring went back for full credit. I used the money to pay my parents back for the help they'd offered. They told me I didn't have to, but I needed the clean slate. I needed to know I'd closed every open tab from that chapter of my life. Emotionally, it was messier. The apartment felt wrong without him. Not emptier, just unfamiliar. Like walking into a place you used to know well and realizing the furniture has all been shifted a few inches to the left. I kept catching myself planning things that no longer made sense. grocery lists for two, weekend ideas he would have liked, conversations I'd never have. The hardest part wasn't missing him. It was missing the version of my future I'd believed in. 3 years of shared plans, inside jokes, and assumptions evaporated overnight. When someone lies to you that thoroughly, it doesn't just break your heart. It destabilizes your sense of reality. You start replaying every memory, asking yourself what was real and what was performance. My friends were patient. They dragged me out of the apartment when I started isolating. They filled weekends with noise and distraction and the occasional dark joke. One of them kept telling me I should turn my spreadsheet into a template for anyone trying to catch a cheating partner. I laughed even though part of me hated that it was funny. I didn't regret exposing the truth. He would have married me. I'm certain of that now. He would have stood at the altar, promised me loyalty, and continued seeing his ex behind my back. If I ever suspected anything, he would have called me crazy, paranoid, controlling. The only reason he got caught was because he forgot to turn off his location services. That's it. That's the difference between the life I almost lived and the one I escaped. If telling the truth made me look cruel to people who preferred comfort over honesty, I could live with that. 2 months passed before things truly went quiet. Not the dramatic kind of quiet where everything suddenly feels healed and resolved, but the dull, steady silence that comes after the dust has settled, and you're left standing in the aftermath, taking inventory of what's still there. That was when it hit me how deeply tired I was. Not just physically, though. My sleep had been fractured for weeks, but mentally, emotionally. I was exhausted from holding myself together, from being the reasonable one, the calm one, the woman with receipts who never raised her voice while everyone else lost their minds. Strength is useful in a crisis, but it's heavy to carry for too long. I heard through mutual friends that he was still living with his parents, still telling a revised version of the story where I was cold and obsessive and impossible to please. In his version, he never cheated. He was just misunderstood. He never lied. He was just afraid of my reactions. In his version, I was the reason everything fell apart. I didn't correct him. The truth doesn't need constant defense. It holds its shape on its own. Some people believed him. People who didn't know me well, or who were uncomfortable sitting with the idea that someone they liked could be that dishonest. Most people, though, quietly drifted away from him. Lies have a smell to them. Even when people can't articulate what's wrong, they sense it. As for me, I focused on rebuilding things slowly, deliberately. I paid off what I owed, closed accounts, rearranged the apartment until it felt like mine again. Not a shared space haunted by a future that never happened. I donated things we'd bought together, replaced others, repainted a wall. Just because I could. Small acts of ownership. Small declarations of independence. One evening, a friend convinced me to download a dating app. I resisted at first. I wasn't ready for anything serious, and I knew it. Eventually, curiosity won out over fear. I matched with someone a week later. We started texting. Nothing intense, nothing heavy. Just easy conversation and shared sarcasm. She asked about my last relationship. I paused, fingers hovering over the screen, and then typed, "It ended badly." That was it. No details, no trauma dumping, no spreadsheet references. She replied, "Breakups are hard. Take whatever time you need." It was such a simple sentence, but it landed softly in a place that had been bruised for a while. I'm not healed in the neat, inspirational way people like to package survival stories. I still have moments where something small, a song, a location tag, a passing joke, tightens my chest unexpectedly. Betrayal like that doesn't disappear. It teaches you, changes you, makes you slower to trust and quicker to notice when something doesn't add up. But I don't regret how I handled it. I trusted my instincts. I checked the details. I refused to let someone rewrite reality just to protect their comfort. I chose truth over peace, even when the truth was expensive and ugly and isolating for a while. If that makes me cold, so be it.